Hi, Gloria.
I'm here.
Oh, hey.
We're just having problems with my computer. Oh, here we are.
Okay, just a word to please try to keep your video on because you're all
I'm here.
voting members.
Oh, hey.
We're just having.
Okay, and if you wouldn't mind, Yolanda, please call the meeting to order again. Thank you.
Barb, can we ask
right.
everybody to mute their,
Okay, just a
Yes,
word.
because there's background noise, if you can just push your mute button down in the left-hand corner.
Voting members.
We're just having.
And Barb, that includes you.
I have to keep my mic on,
Okay,
but I do. Yes, that's a friendly reminder to just keep your mic muted until you're speaking. And then I'm going to go off video here, but I'm in the background. So now ready to call the meeting to order. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Barb. Yes, I will go ahead and call the meeting of the Citizens Renaming Committee or Naming Committee to order at 4:38 p.m. on Friday, August the 21st. Good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for being here on a Friday at 4:30. My name is Yolanda Shelton Morris. I have the privilege of serving as the chairperson for this committee. I also have had the privilege of serving alongside Malele Chikasi Nana, who was a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, the Madison Alumni Chapter here in Madison, Wisconsin, of which I am chapter president. She was also a charter member of our chapter that was chartered on August 27th, 1977, and was a Delta for over 60 years. So this is an honor and a privilege to serve in this capacity and to see the renaming of Falk Elementary School be renamed in her honor. So again, I want to thank you all for being here. If we could first start with introductions, I will call each of your names as I have them listed here. And if you could just mute yourself and show your screen if you're able and introduce yourself. We'll first start with Verona Morgan.
Hi, Verona, please unmute your mic. Thank you. I might be, there you go.
I'm Verona Morgan, and I'm president of Women in Focus, a 35-year women's organization here in Madison. And I'm here to represent the 24 members of that organization. And I have worked with Miss Malele for years when her name was Betty. So, and it was a pleasure to know her then, and it became more and more of a pleasure to know her as she did her work here in Madison. Thank you.
And you're also a member of Madison Alumni Chapter.
I am. Thank you, Sorry, President.
Thank you. Erica?
Okay, sorry, still trying to figure out the Zoom myself. I'm Erica. I have 4 kids that attend MMSD. I have 2 at Toki and 2 at Falk. In addition to that, I also sit on the Affirmative Action Commission for the city. So I'm really honored to be able to sit and be part of this.
Thank you. Gloria Hawkins.
I'm Gloria Hawkins. I'm retired from the university as assistant vice provost there in the division of diversity, equity, and educational achievement. I'm co-chair of the Martin Luther King Coalition for the City and County, and also I am a member of the Martin Luther King Humanitarian Commission for the City and County. And I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority for more than 50 years. And I have known Miss Malele for many, many years, over 40 years. And I knew her when she was Betty Latimer.
Thank you. Yvette.
Hello, everyone. I'm Yvette Craig, and I am the new publisher and editor of Emoji Magazine, and I am basically the guardian of Miss Malele's legacy with the magazine. And I've lived here in Madison now for, I guess, a year and 7 months, and everyone has been very loving and warm to me, and I thank you for that. I didn't know Miss Malele as long as many of you have, but I definitely feel her spirit running through me every day.
Thank you. Gloria.
We have two Glorias, I think, Yolanda.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Gloria
no,
Latson
I
Billings.
needed to get off of mute.
Oh.
Hi, I'm Gloria Latson Billings. I'm the other Gloria. Hi, Gloria Hawkins. I am Professor Emerita of the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I'm the chairman of the Board of Directors for the Urban League of Greater Madison. I am the co-chair of the Schools of Hope delegation for the United Way. I'm a member of the Board of Directors for the Madison Children's Museum and the Board of Directors for the One City Schools, and have just been appointed to the Community Advisory Board for the Carbone Cancer Center. So I do a lot of board work, but I'm also here representing Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority. Michelle felt it would be a conflict of interest for her to be on it, so I asked if I would do it, and I have known Miss Malele my entire 29 years here, and yes, she was Betty when I first got here, and I remember the naming ceremony, but I'm really, really honored, and every time I think of her, she always tells me this one thing. She says, you did everything right, except one thing. And so the members of Delta Sigma Theta know what she meant by that, but she's very much in my heart, and I'm delighted to be a part of this group.
Thank you. Vance Ashby.
Good afternoon. Excuse me for having my picture up. Going to be getting in the car shortly, and I wanted to stay connected, so this was easier. Vance Ashby, retired teacher and administrator from the MMSD. Also worked for the Department of Public Instruction under Carleton Stanford Taylor and the Wisconsin Historical Society. I was director of their education program. And I am enjoying retirement, a little busy. I am currently also on NAACP's executive committee and on the education committee, and I am representing them and myself. When I moved here in '92, Malele approached me and said, hey, you're a new Black teacher, let's talk. And at that time, it was still pretty novel to have Black teachers in Madison. There were some, but not many. And so I got to know her through that, attended many functions with her over the years. She will be greatly missed as a heartbeat in our community, but I feel honored to have a say and vote for this proposition to have a building, a name, a school, an educational foundation facility named after her. Thank you.
Thank you. Viola Carter.
Hi, my name is Viola Carter. I am the Manager of Policy and Program Improvement for Dane County Office for Equity and Inclusion. I also am the Vice Chair of the Dane County Credit Union Board of Directors, and I'm also on the Madison Temple. I'm truly honored to be here, and I once was the Chair of the City Affirmative Action Commission. I'm happy to be here and to work with this. Our children are very important, and it's very important that they see themselves throughout history, and that the roles that we have played in the improvement of education.
Thank you. Richard Scott.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Richard Scott. I'm just a community member and glad to be here. Retired from Madison East High School after a few years, so grateful to be here.
Thank you. Carla Jenkins.
I'm Kara Jenkins, and I am a longtime parent at Falk. All my 4 kids have graduated from there. And so my heart has a soft place for the school. And I served for a couple of years as the PTO president.
Thank you. Sarah Hall.
Hi, I'm Sarah Hall. I'm the school social worker at Falk Elementary. I also happen to be a Falk parent. I just want to say, Richard, you probably downplayed yourself a little bit. This was your suggestion. So thank you, Richard, for bringing this to our attention as an opportunity to honor Malele. I did not have the opportunity to know her, but you all have done such a wonderful job of conveying kind of the spirit in which she lived. And I appreciate you all for being here and the support that you're showing for this effort. So.
Thank you. And last but not least, Claire Siegrist.
Hi, I'm Claire Siegrist, and I am a parent of the last 8 years. Now that I don't have anybody going off this year.
Sorry, Claire, you're breaking up pretty badly.
My
They can't hear you very well.
graduated in the spring. I'm also a substitute teacher, and I have the opportunity to get to know a lot of
Hi, Claire.
the students fall, and I've been through next.
Hi, Claire.
Oh, sorry. So anyway, I teach a lot at Falk as a substitute teacher. So I have the opportunity to get to know, hear. Am I still breaking up?
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. We're just
It's
getting
okay.
bits and pieces of that. And that's
Okay.
probably an internet connection. I'm not sure. Can you hear us okay? Can you nod your head? Can you hear us okay?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
We may have to get your comments in another way, but if you can hear us, that's very helpful. So we'll keep trying though. Maybe it'll get
Lydia,
better.
help me out.
Thank you, everyone, for introducing yourselves. So this meeting shouldn't take too much more longer. Next steps will be MMSD staff will walk us through some of the documents that you all received in the link that I shared with you. And then we will have Adam, who is the principal at Falk, do his presentation to us. We'll have some brief discussion, look to schedule our next meeting, which will take place sometime next week. So with that being said, I will turn it over to Jane and or Carletra.
Yeah. Sorry.
Carletra and Adam, do you want to introduce yourselves real quick? And then I'll walk through some of the procedures and then just hand it back over to Yolanda. Is that okay?
Sure.
Sorry,
you
I'm
all
gonna.
hear me? 'Cause
Can I interrupt
I have-
1 second? Lydia, Claire, I'm not sure if your mic is off. We're getting some feedback there. Okay, is that better? I think so. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Carleton Stanford. I am the Chief of Schools for Elementary. It is truly an honor to be here and to be a part of this work. I would also just like to thank Adam and the team just for their leadership and also for their perseverance and dedication to making sure this happens. And also to my mentors and everyone that's on this call, Dr. Billings, Dr. Scott, it is just truly just an honor to be here. And so just thank you all for joining. I am also a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority and had the pleasure of not only knowing Malele, but serving with Malele as well. And again, just looking forward to making sure this happens and that we can recognize her legacy and her impact in our community. So thank you.
Everybody, I am Adam Zinksheim, the very proud principal of Falk. This will be my 6th year. At Falk will be my 16th year in the district. I started in 2005. I'm a dad myself with a little one going into kindergarten. So this is all taken on a whole new level of meaning for me. I'm just incredibly humbled to be surrounded by the excellence of everyone in this room. It is truly humbling when I looked at the names of the people that were interested in joining us in having this conversation. And for those that know me, and there are a few in this call that know me well, it takes a whole lot to get me emotional. But as Dr. Belmore and Miss Stanford can share, the opportunity to get over the hump, to engage in this conversation had me in tears just because of what this is going to mean for our school, our students and our families. It really is. It means a lot. And to have you with us on this means a lot as well. So thank you for joining us in this work.
Thank you, Adam and Carletra. And I'm Jane Belmore. I served as interim superintendent this year, longtime Madison educator, and in fact, came to Madison the year after Malele was on the school board, the year after she got elected. So I'm, along with Adam and Carletra, really proud to be helping support this committee through the process. I just wanted to walk through some of the information that you've gotten before you get this wonderful presentation from Adam. Basically, Barb, can you just put up the charge to the committee? Barbara?
Coming, Jane, sorry.
Thank you. Isn't Zoom fun?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the wonderful neighborhood group that Dr. Scott and others played such a big role in brought a proposal to the Board of Education on July 27th. And that date then started a 30-day timeline period for people to make comments. And so we'll have an opportunity to see the comments that were submitted on our website a little bit later in the meeting. But so at that time, the proposal was accepted by the school board and the superintendent. And then at the next meeting on August 10th, the board voted on the Citizens Naming Committee, which is you, and there was a process they had to follow to get nominations, and then the board president makes the appointment and also makes the appointment of a chairperson, and we're so happy to have Yolanda be willing to do that. And your charge is basically to follow Board of Education Policy 6700, and you had a copy of that in your board information, and to move this proposal to change the name of Falk School through the renaming process. As the CNC, then you will follow the policy and make a recommendation to the board, either their instructional work group or their operational work group, depending upon the time that it takes for you to make that recommendation. And it should be the soonest date possible after the first meeting of the CNC. So that is your charge. You've introduced yourself. You also got a list of the committee members. And as I said, Barb and Adam and Carletra will be your support. And Barb, you didn't get a chance to introduce yourself. You're a pretty important person in this group. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, no, I'm Barb Osborne. I'm the secretary to the Board of Education. I've just been here a long time.
A long time doing lots of stuff.
Thank you,
Barb. So that is the charge. And if you look at the timeline that you got, you will see that this could be as short as just one more meeting. depending upon whether or not we get other names to consider. So later on, the board may have an opportunity to name a new school. Hopefully the referendum will decide that. And that process is a little more complex than the renaming of a school. But it's basically out of the same board policy that comes. And so there are two periods that we have to follow. One is the 30-day comment period, which will be over. You'll see on your timeline, it started August 3rd. It will be over September 3rd. So basically your recommendation can't be made any sooner than September 3rd, but after your recommendation is made to the work group, there's another 14-day period for comments. So if everything works smoothly along this timeline, the soonest that the board would get to a final vote would be September 21st at their regular meeting. But you would propose your recommendation at the instructional work group, which is scheduled at this point to be on September 8th. And in order to do that, you have to have your recommendation in the board packet that goes out the Thursday before that. So this is not a hard process, but it's complicated. And so we're here to help keep you online and answer any questions that you might have about that. So I'm just going to stop there and see if anybody has any questions about the charge and the timeline. And I can't see everybody at this point. Barb, you can take that? Yeah. Just want to raise your hand if you have a question. Verona?
Yes. When I went to the link to include my statement for Women in Focus, it was already shut down. But this says it's due by September 3rd. So I was surprised that I wasn't able to get it in there.
I'm surprised about that too.
I have a
I don't
theory
know
about
if they-
that.
Wait, can you check on that, Barb? They might have shut it down because they had to print out when did you do that?
It's been a few days.
Okay, because we asked them to print out these comments, and I don't know what the technical process is for that, Verona, but we will check on that. And you can certainly submit written comments between now and the next meeting, and those can get into the minutes in that way.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for letting us know about that. We'll check on that. Any other questions? That was important.
I'm sorry, Ms. Belmore. This is Vaughn Ashby.
Hey, Vaughn.
Hi. So if you want to submit a comment, we should just check maybe tomorrow morning, check the website?
Yes, you could. But as you get down to talking about your next meeting, because you are going to have one more meeting, that might be a nice way to open. We'll have public comments at the next meeting.
Okay.
And so it might be, I don't know that you guys could do that at the next meeting now. So no, I would just say, yeah, try to do it in the next couple of days. And if you can't get in, just send your written comments to Yolanda. Would it be okay for people to send their written comments to you? Or would you rather them send it to Barb?
Oh, that's fine. I can receive them and then I just send them to Barb. Or
yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Is that okay, Barb?
Thank you.
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarification. Thank you.
And thank you guys for bringing that up because we want to make sure that that's open.
I'm not sure if there's two ways that you can submit written comments to the board. So I have to look at both places and make sure that we're talking about the same thing. So I'll check on that after the meeting's over.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sure that it must have been open for quite a long time because we got so many,
it was.
You know, many responses for it. So yeah, well, I know the other thing that we've been doing is changing out all the laptop computers in the district, which has been a little bit of a process. So it could have just been down for a day. There were a couple of days and things were down. So we'll check on it. Thank you. Any other questions about the timeline or the charge? or the board policy, which I guess I just kind of wove into the timeline is what we need to do with that. So we'll just be keeping an eye out to make sure that we're doing all that. You also got in your packet of information the original proposal that the committee made to the board on the 27th. So you have that for your information. So our administrative responsibility to the committee is to just make sure that we are getting you the information that you need, that we do research around any name that comes up, and we are required to do a background check on all the names proposed, and that's already been done, and everything is very fine with that. So, so you don't need to worry about that. And then the committee pulled together quite a bit of nice information that I think will be important when we do see Adam's PowerPoint. So I think I'm going to stop there and say that for the remainder of the meeting, at some point, you'll want to talk, Yolanda, about the comments. And if you would like, I can go through and count them. I mean, that's kind of nice to have in the minutes. And so I'll do that while you guys are talking about them. And then also the PowerPoint.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
All right, thank you, Jane. Next, we will have our presentation by Adam.
Adam, do you want to control your presentation? Okay, you
You're
gotta
muted, Adam.
unmute your mic. It's up to
There you
you.
go.
I can help you either way.
Oh, why don't you, if you don't mind, I'll talk. If you don't mind clicking through, that would be helpful.
I don't at all. One moment.
Thanks, Barb. So I know many on the team may have seen this. For those watching online, may not have. Just wanted to give the team an opportunity just to get grounded in kind of how we got here. And really, I have to give credit first to Sarah Hall, for team member, for putting together this amazing presentation, kind of summarizing our timeline and why we feel this is a name worth moving forward with. So if you click on the next slide, Barb. So, so basically our renaming effort began back in 2018 and really led to this spring a group of stakeholders within our school, community members, parents, and staff, coming together to really discuss the timeline up to that point and what we wanted to uphold as ideals in thinking about the possibility of a new name. So that led to our board presentation, and I will walk you through the timeline. You can go to the next slide, Barb. So really our knowledge of our former name really stemmed from research that Dr. Floyd Rose had co-commissioned through UW-Madison, looking at the KKK's presence in history at UW. And that research surfaced a student group that a number of prominent Madisonians had been a part of during their time at UW that may or may not have had direct ties to the KKK. Philip Falk had been a member of that student organization. Later on that winter, became aware of some possible exclusionary hiring practices that, at least for a portion of Philip Falk's career, may have guided some hiring within MMSD through Muriel Sims' book, Settling. And so based on those two bits of information, it led to a conversation among our staff about whether we wanted to explore the possibility of engaging our districts in the Board of Education's renaming process. And so you can go to the next slide, Barb. After we learned about the name change to Henderson Elementary from Glendale, we were able to engage with some of the individuals that have been a part of that renaming committee to learn about how that process moved forward. And we're able to provide us a little bit of a roadmap for our own efforts, which led to our forming a school renaming committee that included about 15 members of our community, different leaders within our school community, representatives from our staff, our families, and others that have been involved in our work, as well as those that had helped support Henderson's renaming efforts. And we had a conversation and went through a process where we identified the ideals that we wanted to uphold and the values we wanted to uphold in a new name, because at that time we did not have one idea. We wanted to start with, what made our school so special and the things that we wanted to look for. And, things like excellence in education and someone that represented the diversity of our community. And really in particular for our school renaming team was someone that really that was doing that work right here in Madison. And so continued our efforts in learning more about the renaming process. You can go to the next slide, Barb. And enter Mr. Scott, who had heard about our renaming efforts and had heard about the values that we upheld in looking for a new name, and approached us and said, I have someone that I think meets every single one of the values that you had shared, and that was the name Malele Chikasa Inanna. And many of those in our school community knew of her work, many didn't. And as we learned more about that and had a conversation with those on our school renaming team, there was unanimous support for proceeding with that name. We brought that to our school staff to inform them of the efforts and to educate them about who Miss Malele was. We're able to share that idea with our school community and the community at large, led to over 500 people expressing their support for our efforts. And at that point, we had the support that we felt comfortable with to move forward and activate formal board policy to move forward with Malele Chikasa Inanna as our hopeful new name for our school. So you can go to the next slide. So this is a summary of the many ideas that had come up during our school renaming conversations. The words that you see in larger font are the ones that came up most frequently in those school renaming conversations. So you can see ideals like community and equality and diversity and perseverance, and someone representative of our amazing city, somebody who is an activist, somebody who is a leader, and somebody who is grounded in education themselves. So again, these were the values that guided our conversation. And then, in these efforts, and in our learning more about who Miss Malele was, just pulled out some really salient quotes from the many, many, many articles written in tribute and in celebration of her amazing work in our city that really, again, speak to her alignment with the values that our school renaming team had upheld. And some more here, her footprint, not just in our nation, but in our state, our county, and again, specifically in our community and within the Madison Metropolitan School District is, again, it just was such an amazing match and represents all the things that we're trying to uphold in our school's work. You can go to the next slide, Barb. So we were able to share, again, share this information with our staff, with our school families, and with our school community. And many of those names ended up writing in support of this, not just by signing their name on this particular proposal, but in submitting comments that we will get to later in our meeting. What questions does the citizens renaming team have about our timeline or the process that got us to where we are today with this particular name? Yes.
I just was wondering if there were any other names that have been considered. I'm totally happy with this one, but I'm just wondering if there are any others.
No, we did not receive any other submissions, and we may still, but up to this point, this has been the one name that people have kind of kind of collaboratively rallied their support around. And I also do want to honor the work that Sarah Hall, a member of this renaming team, has done as in facilitating our school renaming team. If there's anything you'd like to add, Ms. Hall.
Just for everybody's understanding, I mean, the point where we were at when we met in February was really a place where, you know, the next thing we were going to do is figure out what the process for gathering potential names was. No one on the committee, you know, really had an idea at that time. We kind of knew what we wanted to end with, right? Like the feeling we wanted to end with, but we didn't have a name in mind. And so it was just sort of, you know, luck that Mr. Scott approached us with the name and then joined us at that time. So that's how we got here, and we're awfully glad we did.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you, Adam and Sarah. So next, Jane, I know you said we should talk about the public comments. Have you been able to count those up? One. And maybe while you're doing that, Barbara, is it possible to bring them up on the screen?
Yes. Here we are. There are 12 pages.
Could I interject here for a moment?
Sure.
I took the liberty of counting those names and signatures in support of Malele Chikasanana, and I counted 67. It may be more.
67 names that were in the letter?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I got, in terms of comments, I got 69. So, and I didn't, and they were all positive. There was
yes.
There wasn't that was another name or not in favor.
Any additional thoughts, questions, or comments around that?
I know that her Miss Malele's children are enthusiastically in support of this. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, there was also a comment from Jim in the comments.
That will probably be important as the process after it comes to a close and the community is looking at how they want to move forward and making their celebration of changing, changing the name. So that'll probably be a next phase of things. So that's really important to bring that up. Thank you.
I do have a question though. Since there's only one name that's been submitted, do we just continue waiting for other names, or is there a cutoff time that we can get other names, or we can't accept any other names? I'm not really.
So that is actually, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jane, but if by our next meeting, which we'll be scheduling sometime for next week, is when we would review any other additional names that may have been submitted, as well as any additional public comment. Is that correct, Jane?
That's correct. And the first 30-day comment period is up September 3rd. So you just have that little bit of window of time to make your recommendation and get it officially to the board work group so that it can be voted on the 21st. But there's that additional 14-day period between that work group and the vote that if there was another consideration, but that has never happened, so I don't know. But it's
Question?
part of the policy, yeah.
If there are other names submitted, who is going to do the background checking? Is that something that the committee has to do, or is that something that someone in charge on the school board does? And if that does happen, how soon do we get that information so that we can review that information as we can reconsider the renaming of the school?
That is a very good question. The board policy says that the superintendent will provide this committee the background information and any other research that's needed to happen for names that come up. So in this case, that would be Carletra and working with Dr. Jenkins in terms of, and other folks in the administration to get the background and everything done. And then that would mean that you would probably have to change your timeline. And so the important dates to consider would be the regular board meeting, which is usually the last Monday of the month, every month, because that would be when the final vote would be taken. Nice question.
Any other questions or thoughts to share?
I don't know if we want to like gather this at some point when we, in that last slide of the PowerPoint that we sent out to our families, it was really meant to gather like support from our school community specifically. We did get the 500 names that were submitted that I have access to, you know, in other names that are in support. Some of those names were submitted on the proposal, but there was like the deadline to submit the proposal. So if names got submitted after that, they were not included.
That should be probably noted somewhere in the minutes. Maybe you could bring that up at the next meeting.
Okay.
Sarah or somebody from the committee to just say for the record.
Yeah.
There were, 500 community members who signed in support of this change.
Sounds good. I can have that together for us next time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then just a question about appropriate process too for those that have submitted public comment in writing. Is that something that this particular team looks at, or is that something that is attached to meeting notes for anyone to see?
So they were attached to the agenda for this meeting, and then so they will stay in board docs.
Okay.
So that's as a record there. And you considered them tonight. This committee considered them tonight, or took the information, noted that the information was shared. And then as any other names come up, any other people want to speak, and or as Barb said, there's two ways to there would be two ways to write to the board. One is through that website that we're checking on, and then the other would be through our regular way to make comments at a board meeting, and that is all spelled out on the board webpage.
Thank you.
I have just one more question, Jane. As members of the renaming committee, is there any level of like appropriateness or inappropriateness as far as us like promoting the board like process for submitting a comment?
Are you thinking more of publicizing it more?
Yeah.
So, more widely. I think Attica could do that as school principal, just reminding the community that we're in this process, and want you to know where we are, and we have at least one more meeting left and open for comment.
Thank you.
Outside of school community, can it also be shared in other?
Well, it's on the website, and it was announced at the board meeting. I'm not sure, Barbara, if there's any other public announcement, or if it's just people, in your.
I'm just saying, can other people share? Is that okay to do?
Absolutely. Yes. Everything. Yep. Totally open.
Okay.
Especially you all have many different community organizations that you touch. And so, you know, that's another place to make sure you're sharing that.
Okay. All right, thank you, Jane. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. It may not pertain to anything that is going on right now, but you know, in my concept of thinking about people and their own impressions, is there going to be some sort of critique before their comments get in there? Because there's some people that may just kind of become very negative and very, I guess, you know, what's the word am I thinking about? Improper to speak about what's going on. Is there a way that we can schedule that what comments should be within a certain framework, so you're not being, you know, vilified?
Yeah, I know kind of what you're talking about, Richard, but so far, I mean, I've looked at the comments and I don't see anything that would be, I mean, it would have to be something really inappropriate.
Right, yeah, I've seen that, and I agree to what I've read, and I appreciate that, but I'm just wondering, is there something that can be, that can, someone can come in there and just kind of like start saying all kinds of things that, you know, and I hate to look at it from that standpoint, but you know, reality is a reality that some people just don't want to buy, you know, about what we're trying to do.
Right, and I guess I will just say that, and Barb, you can step in here too if you have anything to offer, but the board has public comments, and then what the board does with those public comments is up to the board. And so, you know, they will hear public comments and sometimes do, you know, hear comments that, you know, just reflect the public's opinion. But they don't have to use that information to make a decision.
Okay, yeah, I have a concern about vulgarity and that kind of thing. That
Yeah.
I can assure you, Mr. Scott, that anything that is shared with a board committee like this, if we had something that came in like that, we are screening for that.
Okay, cool.
And that would not be shared.
Thank you.
Yep.
Oh, I do have one other statement, and so it's not, no one is misled. I've been called Dr. Scott. I don't have a doctor or a PhD or anything. I'm just Mr. Scott. So just so you know, I don't want to mislead anybody.
I have one other question, please. We have objections from his family. I'm assuming that they still live around Madison. They haven't said anything. And it goes, it piggybacks on what Mr. Scott was asking about people with negativity and things of that nature. I just want to make sure that, you know, that not necessarily consideration, but we, you know, if he has family in the area, I don't know whether or not they've said anything.
Yeah, and actually I can add to that. I actually was able to get into contact with his family, and they are very much in support of our new name. You know, was able to share some more information with me about a lot of embarrassment he felt later in his life when some of this research came out, and how some of those beliefs didn't align with certainly who he was at the end of his career. And so, you know, they wanted that known for the public record too, did not refute in any way some of the accounts that were shared, but, you know, wanted it known for the public that he was more than a few of those decisions, and certainly some of his hiring practices over the course of his career as superintendent, you know, may have evolved in a way that brought a number of very talented staff of color into our school district, but you know, did not refute in any way some of the accounts that were shared. Just wanted that more holistic account, you know, considered, as well as supporting the efforts of what we're doing right now. So I don't think the committee has anything to worry about there.
Thanks, Adam. So any other questions, thoughts? So our next step then is to plan for our next meeting, which I again said will need to take place sometime next week. I don't know if this day and time, I know it's a Friday, but I don't know if this day and time works well for everyone, or if there's another day next week that we should be looking at, or another time that we should be looking at. So what are people's thoughts around that? Based on what Jane has kind of already shared, I imagine that that meeting won't take too long, probably not more than an hour. In regards to additionally reviewing any additional public comments that we receive, similar to how we did this evening, maybe having some discussion or answering any questions or clarification, but I don't imagine the meeting taking more than an hour. So we can certainly do next week, Friday at 4:30, or we can also look at another time. So what do folks think?
So Yolanda, actually, I had a response for your any other questions, but I didn't get to my mute button.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. That's okay. We all working in virtuality. So, so I think the question actually goes to Dr. Belmore, and that is in the policies. I mean, we're following it exactly as they're laid out, but is there any provision in the policies regarding a renaming when you are changing the name of a building that is named after someone? You know, what's the criteria for removing that name, I guess is what I'm asking. Because in preparation for the meeting, one of the things that I noticed was that in times when other names have been changed, they were almost always about an area. So in the case of Virginia Henderson, the school was named after the area, Glendale. In the case of the middle schools, when we did that change of all those middle schools, what was talked about was the fact that each school already, that name was already in existence. So you had Orchard Ridge Elementary and Orchard Ridge Middle. So that's why you could go to Toki and, you know, the O'Keefe, all of them, they didn't actually replace a name that existed. And the reason I'm asking this is not because, you know, I certainly am in total support of what we're doing, but I worry down the road for someone saying, not having anything to do with someone having behaved in any negative way, but just someone wanting to rename a school. You know, what's the criteria, I guess, that is in place? Because one of the things I first thought about when we talked about this, doing this, and I didn't know all the background stuff that the folks had done, is, well, why are we choosing an existing name when there were like 6 names of elementary schools that are just areas? So this doesn't change anything that we're doing. I'm just wondering whether or not the board wants to think about whether or not there should be some criteria that allows for the removal of a name. I would be turning over my grave if 50 years from now, someone said they didn't want Wright School to be Wright School. So I don't know what it takes to take it down, take a name down.
I understand. Right now, I think the policy is the policy, and it goes for, it doesn't really say anything about removing a name. It's always replacing. So it's either replacing, it has been replacing, or new is what the policy is about. But I appreciate that, Gloria. And I think that that might be something that the school board will want to take into consideration. They're usually updating their policies, you know, on a basis when something like comes up that makes them think about that, you know, hadn't thought about that in the past, and now they're thinking about it. So that will be something that they could begin to think about. I'm sure that they are going to be wanting to take a look at several policies this year. They do on a normal basis anyway. So I'll bring that to their attention.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
I find it interesting that the names that are on, say, high schools, I'm looking at that, they are, for the most part, names that are location, like East High School, West High School, a memorial. But then you have La Follette, which was another name, a person's name. And I think that's the only name that in the high school level they were talking about. But I'm just wondering, does that make a difference if it's just I guess a land or a community versus a human's name?
Yeah, but the full name of all those high schools are James Madison West, James Madison East. That's the full name of those schools.
I've never heard that. And there was
James Madison Memorial. That's their full name.
I heard that, James Madison Memorial.
Yeah, but it's James Madison West and James Madison East.
Really?
Yes, that's their full names.
I'm not sure about that, Gloria. I've never heard that, but that's something we could look at. I know James Madison Memorial.
Yeah.
Can I just speak a little bit about, so our reading of the policy in 6700, it basically for a person's name asks you to make the argument about why that person is prominent over others, right? And so I guess in writing the proposal, that was the way that I was that was what I was keeping in my head about like why she was prominent over Philip Falk, for example, in trying to paint that story about her. So it's like there's like one sentence in there about like if you're replacing a name with a name.
And so, yeah, that's a good point, Sarah. And so we'll check on those other names, Gloria, and have that information for the next committee. But
I'm going to support Dr. Billings on what she was saying as she was talking about the approach for renaming a name of a building that's named after a person. I believe that she has a really valid concern that she's brought up, and as a person who actually deals in policy all the time, that would be something I would be taking in consideration if I was dealing with so thank you, Dr. Billings, for bringing that up. I guess that sort of was part of my point when I was asking about the family or his friends or what was their thoughts and feelings and behind it. But I believe that Dr. Billings articulated it just a little bit beyond what I was exactly saying.
But then I think also what we're really saying is that there's a need for some clarification in terms of the criteria. And in so doing, I think that would help us to address, and none of us probably will be here 50 years from now, address, taken away names. I would also roll in my grave, or my ashes would spread out everywhere if we as a committee and then submitted Malele's name to be named and instead rename the school in Malele's name, and then 50 or 30 or 20 years down the road, someone would come and want to rename the school in her honor. Prominence is in many ways could be very subjective. And so I think there is really a need for more clarification, not only in terms of helping us to carry out our responsibility, but also as a safeguard and as a way of guiding future committees, so that we have a clear understanding of what the process is and the justification for the things that are done according to that process.
Gloria, that is exactly my point. And, as I think about, I keep referencing Wright because I'm looking at the demographics of that community. The school is largely Latinx. So if prominence is the term, I can imagine the Latinx community coming with a very prominent, maybe one day they want to name it Juan Lopez Elementary. you could not refute his quote prominence. And we don't have a criteria for deciding, well, okay, we won't make it James Wright. I just think, and maybe this is not part, maybe because this is not part of our charge, I'm asking a question that doesn't need to be asked, but I just think it needs to be out there. We need to be thinking about how do we memorialize and keep in place a name that you change.
I do believe that those are great questions, and probably not a lot of whole good answers at this point, but certainly there for consideration. And it's one of the reasons we have a citizens naming committee, you know, to help kind of figure out all of that as from a community point of view. But the policy, I do believe, could be more clear on some of that. So, and this is how we find out, you know, when we do something for the first time, and those questions come up. So definitely we'll be taking this information back, but it is not part of your charge for this particular process, but it's good that it's come out. And I've been taking notes as you guys have been speaking to. So Barb and I will put this together in terms of making sure that the question is there about being more clear on criteria.
I think that would be very good. And while it's not part of our charge, getting some clarification will also help as a safeguard as it relates to this committee carrying out its charge.
Good point, Dr. Hawkins. So, Jane, will you be able to bring that information back for our next meeting next week? Or be able to
I will
clarity?
say this, who said they are familiar with changing policies? Viola. It takes a while. I mean, it's not something that I could get an answer to and have all this new criteria back.
No, that wasn't what I was asking. I was just in to Dr. Hawkins' point about our work as a committee. Is it possible maybe to get some additional clarification?
Sure.
And be able to bring that back to the next meeting?
Right. Given this question and given the policy as it is now. Yeah.
I think even if we took a minute at the next meeting to just review what 6700 says in regards to like a name change or the use of a name, it would be helpful.
For sure. And everybody can read it between now and then.
Any other questions or thoughts to share? All right, so we'll just need to determine when we want to come together again next week. And I will open it up for people to give their thoughts if we want to stick with Friday at 4:30, or if we want to look at another day or time. I see Viola is shaking her head. Yes, Friday works.
Well, listen, in this COVID environment, this is like Groundhog Day. Every day is the same. Every day is the same. Okay, so I'm good on Friday.
Okay.
The 27th is the only day that doesn't work for me because we're doing a question and answer session for new families because we're getting ready for the school year. So if it's not the 27th, any other day works for me.
Yeah, it's the 28th.
Okay, so let's do August 28th at 4:30. 4:30 still work for everyone?
Yep.
All right. Jane, anything else I need to go over before we end?
I don't think so. Barb, is there anything that you
that's good.
have?
We'll get a new agenda out and everything timely, early next week.
Right.
Hey, that sounds good.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you for your service and commitment to this committee. And I will see you all next week.
All right.
Just a motion to adjourn, please.
Oh, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
All right, it's been moved and been seconded by Mr. Scott.
Yeah, okay.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries and the meeting is adjourned at 5:42.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.